I am here today with an incredibly gorgeous man. You know, looks on everything, but it really does help when you look as good as Thomas here. So Thomas was on, or Thomas. I never asked. It is Thomas, isn't it? You prefer Thomas over Tom, don't you? Yeah. I thought you did. I remember that from last time when we spoke, because you came on the Andor discussion show, which was amazing. And so I want to have you on again. I want to make sure I had time to have you on for a Mando chat. And what better episode than the kind of halfway through the season? So many things to talk about in this, and I know that you, much like me, generally focus on the more positive elements of Star Wars, and we're both, always defenders, always apologists, always trying, some of that solo love. So, Thomas, good sir, how are you doing? The world's forefront Thor cosplayer that I only found out literally the other day, literally minutes ago, that you do Thor cosplay. And now that I know, I can really see it. So, sir, how are you doing?
Oh, I'm doing very well. I come in here and I'm very excited to talk about the Mandalorian, or should I call it Mandothorian? Yeah, no, we're not going to go there. I'm doing great, man. It's been a long time. I feel like it's been 48 years since we last spoke, but that was just 2020. So that's, maybe it was less than 6 months, I think, but it feels like ages with the way time circles about on the top of itself. But I've been good, man. I'm very excited. This episode, goose pimples, tears, me yelling at the screen. I'm trying to, I think the only time I literally screamed this whole season might have been I think it was the mythosaur reveal, actually. I literally threw a towel in my mouth and was like, oh, because I watch it 5 o'clock in the morning before I go to work. So I wake up, so I don't scroll Twitter. I make my breakfast. I sit down, I eat, I watch it. And when it's a short episode like this week, I watch it twice.
Nice. Yeah, I mean, it's mad. I mean, although I do have some critiques from last week about, Mando literally just falling, doing this really nice. I got really emotional in the last episode when he was in the waters of Mandalore and the living waters and stuff, and he was doing his creed, and I was like, this is really emotional. And then he slips and falls, and I'm like, I wanted the emotional beat, but then when Bo-Katan does see the mythosaur, I was like, well, that's really cool. But I was just like, I know she kind of has to see it, and Din can't, so there's a reason for that. So knowing it's one of those things with, it happened with Kenobi a lot as well, which is I love episodic things. I like it when it's week by week, because I know a lot of people just want to binge stuff, and that's perfectly fine. But for me, I'm like, it's hard to make time. Like when Witcher comes out on Netflix, it's like, okay, you basically have about 4 days, if you're lucky, to avoid spoilers. And then it's just like, well, here's a lump of 10 hours. And it's like, where the hell am I going to get 10 hours to watch this thing? Whereas when it's once a week, it's like you only need to make up to an hour, really, for most things. So I really like episodic, and also I really like it where the whole world basically gets to ruminate on things for a week. You get time to process, but equally on certain things, it can somewhat weaken. And I think that Kenobi, definitely had that. I think that there were, even me, I was critical of Kenobi in certain elements. And then the next episode completely kind of answered it. But before you see the next episode, it feels like a plot hole. And I found that with the mythosaur stuff in the last episode, I think that Din falling and all that stuff, I was like, that kind of takes away from it. But now I'm like, okay, it's a plot device, because obviously it's all Bo-Katan. It's like it's becoming more of her story in a way. So delving kind of in, we'll talk about this episode of stuff as well, but in general for Mandalorian, I can't remember exactly what you said with Andor, but is Mandalorian your favorite live action Star Wars, or is Andor, what's your favorite live action Star Wars, and were you very hyped for season 3 of Mando?
It is absolutely Andor. I love Mandalorian, I love Mando, I love Grogu, little baby Grogs. I love Bo-Katan. Can we talk about Katie Sackhoff still being a badass?
Incredible.
Starbuck. But I loved Andor. I did not realize how much I wanted to live with characters that I had yet to meet, and that's what I was looking for in Star Wars. That's something that I really wanted. And when I go back and kind of look at my Star Wars rankings, it's the ones that really get me are, Rogue One. It's a tone. Empire Strikes Back. It's a tone. Return of the Jedi, I actually had it really low on my list, and I got shit on for a while by my buddies. And then we did a rewatch, and I'm like, you know what, guys, that's the second best Star Wars movie ever. It totally hits different when I don't yell at the Ewoks blinking on Disney Plus. I just don't like them blinking. It's creepier than when they didn't, personally. But with Mando, I've been so hyped for season 3 because we've been waiting for 84 years. And we had Book of Boba Fett, which is like, I watched it recently with a friend because I hadn't seen it, and I'm watching episode 1, and I'm like, okay. And then I watch episode 2, and I'm like, yes, that is peak. And then I watch episode 3, and I'm like, oh yeah, I forgot they did that. Oh yeah, episode 4. Oh, okay, that's right, that's the Finnick Shant. Oh my god, next week's the Return of the Mandalorian, and we watched that, and I'm like, we're back, baby. This is like epic. And then the week we watched, 6th, and I'm like, it's Ahsoka, it's Luke, they're talking. She sees R2 again, like, ah. And then the finale comes out, and I'm like, oh, that's right, that's how they. Oh yeah, they literally is just like, what's the kid doing here? Come on, should have been an emotional moment. I have some bones to pick. I have some Rancor bones to pick with the Book of Boba Fett at times. Really little nitpicks, if I'm being honest. But my biggest nitpick, actually, I'll say it now, should have been called The Mandalorian Season 3 Book of Boba Fett. And I'm going to stand by the fact that Filoni or Favreau had once mentioned, like, no, that's actually going to be the Book of Boba Fett. It was supposed to be The Mandalorian Season 3, the Book of Boba Fett, because, we're going to have Season 3 is going to be a different book. And that would have made more sense to have The Mandalorian, Chapter 5 of the Book of Boba Fett, The Return of the Mandalorian. And then this season would be The Mandalorian. And you'd call it Season 4, whatever, the Book of Mandalore. Mm-hmm. And then you just chapters or whatever. They were talking about changing chapters. I think that would have been easy. I struggle with chapter numbers. I'm just like, yeah, Season 3, Episode 4. And I'll be like, yeah, Season 2, Episode 6, the one where he takes his mask off and he's with Bill Burr. And they're like, sure. I remember those much easier. I will never forget Chapter 20, though. I will never forget Chapter 20 because it's been 22-ish years, 23 years, almost 24 years since Phantom Menace came out. And this big deal here going on with what we get in this episode. But while we're talking about Andor, let's talk about the Mandalorian from last week, where we go back to Coruscant. So Jack Hughes on Reckless Rebellion, my co-host, he says, he's like, I like it. It's good, but it's like, it's a lesser version of Andor. And I'm like, A, not wrong. B, it's not so much a lesser version. It's a less tense version. Mm-hmm. There's a lot less stakes. Like, we're not invested in Andor and all these characters the same way. The stakes are much lower. He's just stealing a little thing. Like, what's the worst that could happen? He gets kicked out of the New Republic and goes to prison for a little bit. At least it's just. He broke the rules. Unlike, walking on a beach. If that was illegal, dude, I wouldn't even be alive. I'd have been executed, man. I live near beach. So, like, I'm always walking on a beach. Looking at you, Niamos. Looking at you. So I loved last week. The dark side has cookies. And I'm really hoping, I've seen a lot of the internet. I try not to look at it, but I do sometimes. And they're like, what is this? I don't like this. I don't know what's going on. I don't know why everyone sounds like they're from the South in America. But I see them complain, and I'm like, guys, you are missing the fact that we are picking up plot threads from season 1 and 2, looping it into this one episode so that when we get to the end of this season, it ties back in. And then when you get to Ahsoka, it's going to tie in more. And then when we get to the event that you all seem to forget's happening, I digest. Let's talk about chapter 20.
I mean, everything you said is apt in a lot of ways. I'll just quickly touch on them, which is I was quite critical of Book of Boba Fett, and I was critical of Obi-Wan Kenobi, but both are good shows. I stand by, they are both good shows. I think Book of Boba Fett didn't know what it was kind of doing in parts. I feel it was a bit like, maybe if they had a few extra months to do it and kind of fine-tune it a bit, and I feel like Kenobi suffered from, should have really been a movie, and then it's kind of a bit too extended, but Kenobi, some of the emotional beats in episode 3 and 6 are just peak Star Wars. The finale battle of Kenobi and Vader, although lore-wise doesn't really add much, visually and thrill-wise is incredible. And then Book of Boba Fett, I'm kind of in agreement with you. I'm like, I was so surprised when the first episode of Mando came out, and it was like previously on, and I was like, here we go. Here's them doing all the Book of Boba Fett recap, and it was like 40 seconds, and it was kind of like, oh yeah, do you remember IG-11 blew himself up? And I'm like, wait, what? And then it just starts, and you're like, I'm sorry, what's happening? And then it's like, oh, maybe at the start they'll do a recap. No, it's just he's with Grogu with his new ship, and it's like, you better watch Book of Boba Fett. We're not even going to mention Boba Fett in the first episode. We're not even going to say you should probably watch Book of Boba Fett after this. You should just know. And it's like, okay, I mean, I know because I watched Book of Boba Fett, but so many of my friends watched like the first 2 or 3 episodes and I'm like, no, I'm kind of done with this. And it's like, but you have to hang on because 5 and 6 are arguably some of the best styles we've ever had.
Yeah.
And I feel like they should have done kind of what they did with Black Panther in Civil War in the MCU, where in Civil War, Black Panther hadn't been anywhere else. So you saw him in Civil War, and then when Black Panther came out, you're like, oh, that guy from Civil War, I want more about him. I feel like what Book of Boba Fett kind of should have done with Mando is just had episodes 1, 2, 3, 4, and then episode 7. And then it would have been like, oh, Mando's back. And maybe they don't have Grogu in, I don't know about the Grogu element, but just have Mando in it, kind of helping Boba Fett. And it'd be like, oh, what's Mando doing? What's happening with Grogu? Blah, blah, blah. And then what they could have done is the episodes 5 and 6 from Book of Boba Fett released as like a special premiere episode, either as its own little thing and just call it Mando 2.5 or Mando Season 3, Episode 0 or some sort of thing, or even just call it Episode 1 and just make it like a double-length premiere. Do that. I know they're trying to be like, oh, let's try and get people who aren't necessarily interested to watch Book of Boba Fett, but I find that the strongest parts of Book of Boba Fett inadvertently took away from Book of Boba Fett because it was like, yeah, this tribe stuff of the Tusken Raiders is quite cool and interesting and different, and then like, and it's gone, and you're like, what? And then, yeah, let's just never talk about it again, and you're like,
yeah,
I'm sorry, where are we going? It's like, oh, here's Mandalorian. It's like, I thought we were with Tusken Raiders. Oh, there's a Rancor now. He's like, what's happening? Grogu. Okay, series end. And you're like, I'm sorry, this is meant to be the Book of Boba Fett. Fennec Shand seems to be smarter and more better at fighting, and just, nothing against Tamura Morrison, I do like him, but also, Ming-Na Wen is a better actor as well. So you're like, okay, she's basically better than Boba Fett in basically every way, apart from her armor slightly worse, which just means she has to be better at avoiding being shot. And he's the main character. And then you're like, okay, well, he's going to be the bulk, the cool Mandalorian armor guy. And they're like, no, let's bring in Mandalorian, who is basically better than Boba Fett. And you're like, what's happening? That was my critique. I was like, I want either a cool badass Boba Fett, or if you're going to go into the tribal stuff and like indigenous people and tackle all that, because obviously Tamura Morrison's a heritage, do that fully. But then they were just like, oh yeah, we'll just have kind of bits and pieces. Yeah. So,
in the finale, first off, Klein Felt from Reckless Rebellion, he actually calls the finale a cocaine blur of Book of Boba Fett. In fact, the way you just described the whole season is like the whole season is a cocaine blur, just a cocaine infused right fest, which is hilarious. But it's just reminds me of Cocaine Bear, which also kind of fits the whole energy of the series and the movie. But in that finale, totally got off track. What was I saying?
You're talking about a cocaine blur of the finale
does everything.
Of Boba Fett.
The tribes. So I thought when he's like, what are you doing? Going to get reinforcements. I thought he was going to go grab Tusken Raiders.
Mm-hmm.
So when he brings the Rancor out, I'm like, oh, the Rancor, like Moochie. Yeah, Moochie's back from, the Bad Batch. Yay. But then I'm like, oh, yeah, I would have preferred it be Tusken Raiders, personally. Like,
that would have been cool.
I mean, Grogu tamed it, and he's going to tame the Mythosaur. So it's great setup. It's great setup.
Yeah, very good idea. So let's delve right in then. So obviously, and also with the Andor episode, Mandalorian last week, I enjoyed it because I love, lore and seeing Coruscant at that point. I want more Coruscant because we got it all in the prequels, and then we got it in essentially a post-credit scene in Return of the Jedi Special Edition, and it's not really anywhere else even mentioned. It's not even talked about in the sequel trilogy, which is quite offensive to me. And then everywhere else in like animation, you get it a bit, but in the sequel trilogy, it's like, oh yeah, the head of the Republic. Yeah, that's Hosnian Prime, definitely. And you're like, you're not even going to mention Coruscant. You're not even going to, literally the galactic center of the universe. Like you're not even going to say in a sentence, oh yeah, we put it on Hosnian Prime because Coruscant's too much of a target. No, let's just literally not say the word Coruscant in the whole sequel trilogy at all. It's like, oh, okay. So now they're kind of being like, oh no, here's Coruscant. And it's like, oh my God, look what it's like. It's really cool. So I like that element of it. I thought the plot of pushing and Elia Kane, I was like, it's all right. I didn't love it. I didn't hate it, but I was like, yeah, I'm all right. But then again, I think you and I are quite similar to Star Wars, which is like, I don't think there is, in canon at least, I don't think there is some objectively bad Star Wars content. I think there's some misfired Star Wars content. I think there's stuff that hasn't been thought through. I think my least favorite is probably Rise of Skywalker. I don't think Rise of Skywalker is like objectively terrible. I just think it's the inverse of Phantom Menace. I think Phantom Menace, from the halfway point, just gets way better, but the first half is a slog. And I think the Rise of Skywalker, the first half is amazing, and then the second half just drops. And so I think they're both kind of the inverse of each other. It's ironic because they're the opposite sides of the trilogies, because you'd really want the first episode of a big trilogy or a big saga to starts really exciting, but instead it's like, we're going to take a while and then go up. And you want the ending to be the big epic finale, but it's like, a blue lightning goes in the sky and it's Palpatine. It's like there's no stakes. Yeah, so we know what's going to happen. There's no stakes. So that annoyed me a bit, but even then, I think the worst Star Wars content I think that's in canon is probably the Clone Wars movie. And again, it's not aimed for me. It's meant for young kids. And I know a lot of people say Star Wars is meant for kids. The Clone Wars movie is really meant for kids. It's pretty hard to watch. In fact, when Megan and I we're going to do a rewatch. Yeah, we're going to do a rewatch probably of Clone Wars next year or something, because I'm currently doing a Rebels rewatch, because it's, in my opinion, the best Star Wars content that exists. Aside from arguably the original trilogy, but I'm like, the original trilogy, that finale does have emotional beats, but for me, a certain episode that I will not name for spoiler reasons for people who are listening who haven't watched Rebels yet, because they're failures. There's a certain episode in Series 4, and it's so emotional, and I've never ever had that emotional beat with any Star Wars content ever. So long story short, with Clone Wars, I said to Megan, maybe we'll do a Clone Wars rewatch next year or something, and she's like, that's fine, but I'm not watching the movie again. She's just like, I'm not going through that again. And she's like, I'm mad at you, because when you recommend people Star Wars and Clone Wars, you tell them to skip the movie, but you made me watch it.
Here's my thing. Here's why I'm mad that it exists. And then we'll get into the Mandalorian chapter 20. It's the first 4 episodes. It is just without the credits in the beginning and the end. That's all it is. And if there's 4 episodes that should have been like in a theater, that's like a movie that you should be watching like in the theater, like a movie, it's the Siege of Mandalore. It's the end of season 7. I want that in a mother effing movie. Like in a theater, in a movie, I want popcorn. I want to yell at a child for not knowing who Darth Maul is. Like all of it. I will execute him with popcorn bullets. Pew pew.
I agree. Or even in season 1, the Siege of the Ryloth thing. Like why or like the Lair of Grievous. Like have an episode where it's like the Lair of Grievous stuff. Like there's 2 episodes that kind of link together there. Have those 2, and then the Siege of Ryloth. Have those 2, is it? Because Clone Wars isn't in chronological order anyway, so what difference does it make? You've got episode, I think, 5, which is Rookies, which is one of the only essential episodes for me for Series 1. It's like Rookies, Lair of Grievous, and then the last 4 episodes. But it's like, what you're going to do time jumpy stuff anyway, so why do that? Why choose 4 of arguably the weakest episodes to put together? It's baffling to me, but
that's just Fox doing dumb Fox things back in the day, because they're like, well, we can make money off of this. Oof. But even if I'm not mistaken, Filoni's even been like, yeah, I was against it, but they paid the bills. So
well, yeah. And to be fair, I mean, it's funny actually, ironically, because I've still got my ticket stub when I saw that at the cinema, and it actually was the thing that turned me off Star Wars. I literally was like, I watched Revenge of the Sith and all that stuff, and I was like, I really love Star Wars, it's great. And then I watched the Clone Wars movie, and I was like, maybe if this is where Star Wars is going, I don't like it as much. So I didn't watch the Clone Wars until Rebels came out. And really, if it wasn't for like the games, like the Force Unleashed games and like Battlefront and Bounty Hunter, those sort of things, if it wasn't for those games, I wouldn't have been so hyped for The Force Awakens when that came out, because it was the games that kind of kept me going. But Clone Wars, the movie, really turned me off. And that was when I was like, when that came out. Yeah, it was 2007?
2008.
2008. So yeah, I was like, 13 to 15-ish, depending on when. So yeah, and I was like, not great. But something that is great is Mandalorian Series 3, Episode 4, or Chapter 20. So, directed by Carl Weathers, the man, the myth, the legend. And so, there's parts to this. We'll jump about because, we will, because that's how you and I work and how this very podcast works. But starting kind of at the start, so it's kind of set into a few parts, There's the first part, which is the training, and then the kid gets taken by the dragon thing. There's the middle section, which is the Grogu flashback. And then there's the ending, which is the dragon, sort of when they get to the dragon's nest. So focusing on the start then, when you saw the Mandalorians training and all that sort of stuff and Grogu's kind of interaction, what do you think of all that? And the dragon taking the kid, like that whole first section before we get the flashback. What do you think of all that stuff?
My main thoughts are, this is awesome, and it's the longest cold open I think I've ever seen in a Star Wars show. It's like 9 minutes 20 seconds before you get boom boom, the Mandalorian chapter 20, the Foundling. And I'm like, oh, it's about Ragnar, because he just got Ragnar Lothbroked all the way up to that nest up there, man. Okay, cool. And I'm like, cool, we're about to like chase this kid down. We're going to learn about him. And then, the middle happens. And I think the middle's better than what I thought we were going to get. So that's awesome. But I loved one of I got a gripe. It's so small. But as somebody who tries to conserve energy and supplies, why are we wasting ammunition at the water? Just shooting. Like, aim at something that you can hit, Stormtrooper. Don't aim at the water. That's the only thing. It grinds my gears. It makes no sense. We went on a 5-minute tangent last night on the Rebellion about it, because it's just like, why are you wasting your blaster rounds? Anyways, your energy cells, excuse me, I think that's what they're called. I love the training. I really enjoyed it. You get to see the challenges a couple different times. Going to be big coming up, I think, at the end of next episode. And it leads to Grogu going mano a mano for the first time with a Mandalorian. And I really enjoyed the Auntie Bo, just like, first off, I love the ending so much more than what she said before. She's like, don't worry, he's just proud of you. My dad was the same way.
Oh yeah, I got me.
And then she's like, go easy on him, kid. And I'm like, yeah, that's right. And so he sits there and he just gets shot twice, right? And Din is like, Daddy Din Djarin is he's like, it's okay, you can show them what you do. And he just lasers him in the face, basically. I mean, not in the face, but he just couple front flips, back flips, bam, 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 nailed it. And he's like, I did good. And then the dragon coming in, I caught me off guard. Man, that Ragnar kid has the worst luck with animals. He's almost died twice by reptiles in this one season that we've known him. The 2 episodes we've seen him speak, he's almost died. So I think this is that Paz Vizsla's got some issues with his son going forward. What do you think of it?
Yeah, so the start thing, I will say, as someone who, as people who know who've listened to my podcast and things, I lost my dad like 10 years ago, this year actually, think about it. And so when I've got that soft spot, I've got, everyone's got issues in some minor or major way, but like when it's daddy issue stuff, I'm always like, if there's a villain and he's bad and his dad died at a young age and it's always been that kind of thing, he could never live up to his dad's expectations, I'm always like, whatever bad stuff you're doing, it doesn't justify it, but I'm like, I understand a bit more. I've got a little bit of that. So when he was like, my dad was the same, where he's actually like, I think that might be the first time it's been specifically confirmed that like Din is like Grogu's dad. Like,
yeah, basically. Like,
it's always been, the joke is Dad DeLorean, that's the thing. But like, that's the first time. So I was like, oh, he's finding his family. Oh, it's making me happy. It's like, talking to the greatest show ever made, Star Wars Rebels. It's not the best show ever made, but it's one of the best Star Wars shows ever made. And that's all about found family and stuff. When you get Ezra kind of really understanding that he's finding his place, that really connected with me. So I loved that. I thought the Grogu bit was cool. As you said, with Din saying to him, show him what you can do. It's okay, because obviously Grogu has had to live through Order 66, and we've seen the trauma that leaves for people in a variety of ways. I think Cal Kestis in Jedi Fallen Order, that's really a very clear show of like PTSD. Like, he had to hide himself away from the Force to such a degree, he basically broke his connection, had to relearn stuff, and was having like PTSD flashbacks about his experience. Like, that's dark. That's like really cool, dark stuff to do with Order 66. And we get to see that with Grogu a bit, obviously, in this episode. But, seeing him jump around, I was like, it's a bit silly, but how else would you do it? I was a bit worried that he was going to, force choke the kid, lift him up and then just slam him down. I was like, oh, God. I was like, don't show what you can do too much. He's like, do you remember episode, what was it, 2 or something of the whole season, of the whole series, where he, lifted up the Mudhorn and, lifted that thing up. Yeah, and you're like, this, and obviously he has force choked people once or twice, so it's like, I don't want him to almost kill this kid, because that would take a very dark turn, but it could. And then, I had to look online because I didn't know if it was a dinosaur. I thought it was a dragon, but apparently it's a raptor, that thing. And according to Wikipedia, which is fairly reliable for the most part, it's not 100% accurate all the time, but I generally find it's pretty good when it comes to these sort of shows because people are pretty on it. It doesn't appear that the raptor, there's a Legends, it's in Legends, and it doesn't appear to have been in the canon before. I suspect people who have read a lot of Legends stuff, there's probably a lot of stuff in the comics. I know there's the Dathomirian Night Sisters in the Legends comics with Quinlan Voss and stuff. There was a lot of crazy creatures they were riding, and there's a lot of raptor-like things in Star Wars, so maybe in a while they'll just be like, oh yeah, we called it a raptor in the subtitles or the audio description, but it's actually a thingamabob. And there's oh yes, the thingamabobs from the other stuff. So yeah, I liked it. I didn't think about the kid having really bad luck, but you're actually right. It's just that waterfront, and it's. I think someone said it. It might have been Angry Andy when we did episode 2, but it was like, why have they decided that there's the best place to train when this giant dinosaur turtle thing that's almost unkillable without a ship? Why have you settled there right by the water? What a place. And now it's also a place that this raptor has that's not the first time. They weren't oh no, it's a raptor. It's oh yeah, he picks up kids and steals them quite a lot. And you're yeah, last time he's killed the kids. Yeah, it's you can't scare it because, whenever we do that in the past, it kills the kids. And you're why are you still here? You have jetpacks. You can go anywhere. And you've decided on this one beach where there's sand turtle, giant dinosaur things, jumping out the water, eating people, trying to get themselves inducted into the Children of the Watch. And then also there's raptors. Choose another place, guys. It seems to be quite a big planet.
I love how this is continuously coming up in every podcast I hear. It's why are you here? And I think right now, in this moment, I figured it out because it's hard. Just like JFK said, we don't do it because it's easy. We do it because it's hard. It makes us stronger. Stronger. We are testing ourselves every day to survive. I don't know where my accent went. It went from dark side to
I don't know what you were going for.
I guess Marin. I guess Marin from Fallen Order and Survivor. Battle Scars. Battle Scars. Great book.
Oh, I started reading that. Yeah, I'm a few chapters in, and I built physically because I started listening to a lot of Legends audiobooks, and then I was I'll listen to these, and then I don't have to buy so many books. I've actually just whenever I listen to the audiobooks and really like them, I now buy them. Yeah, so it's not actually. I'm actually paying more than just buying the book, but I've only got so much time. I think maybe it's probably, maybe they're going to say it in a line of dialogue at some point. Maybe in the next episode, Mando's going to be right, why on earth are you guys staying here? I've just saved you basically twice. And they'll probably say it's a sacred place, it's ancestral, or it's one of the only safe places we can go. There's probably, joking aside, it's the thing with most, I think you definitely understand as a Star Wars fan like I am, where it's most reasons in Star Wars, although they should be explained on screen, and although, yes, there's a lot of issues like the prequels especially, where it's why has this happened? Who knows? But in a few years' time, there'll be a series that explains it all. And it's you shouldn't have to do that. Downloadable content shouldn't fix your plot holes. But in Star Wars, it's kind of a given. So I'm if I have to read a comic to have something make sense, as long as it's not a huge overt plot point, how did Palpatine return?
Somehow.
And then, he did this big speech. Can we hear the speech? Only if you play Fortnite. It's okay, come on, fucking hell.
That's right.
Yeah, it's you can't hear it anywhere else. They didn't play it in the damn movie. They didn't play it in the trailer. They were oh yeah, you have to just basically either play Fortnite at a certain time or do what everyone else did, which is just go on YouTube and listen to it. And it's a cool speech. And why didn't they have that for the first time, not have the crawl to begin with, just have a black screen, have Palpatine's voice saying that, then have the crawl come up? That would have been incredible. And instead they're no, let's just have Palpatine, he's just back already, because, Fortnite. Fuck off.
Honestly, they should have just... It would have been better if they had a crawl explaining how we've gotten to this point, and then all of a sudden it opens with that.
Yeah, I would have loved to hear it. If it was rubbish, I'd be less annoyed, but it's actually really cool, which is probably more upsetting to me.
Oh, yeah, that's understandable.
Yeah, but so I thought all the stuff at the start was cool. I like seeing the Mandalorians training, because obviously fans of Clone Wars especially have seen a lot of Mando stuff, and Rebels as well, we've seen quite a bit, but seeing, it in live action properly is really cool. But yeah, I think we've done enough foreplay. I think we've done enough warming up. This episode has got the comeback of a generation, and a lot of people have been saying that it's redemption, and I disagree with that sentiment, because a redemption is someone who needs to be redeemed. And I know I'm not the unique person who's the only person who's said this, but like Ahmed Best came back to Star Wars. Now, obviously, he was Jar Jar in The Phantom Menace and things, and then he did do Jedi Temple Challenge, which is like a game show thing, but there's like snippets of canon stuff in there, and that's where he plays the character Kelleran Beq, which is the same character we see there. But, the amount of stuff Ahmed Best has gone through, and all the hate that he got for doing exactly what George Lucas told him to do, is just insane. And the fact that he's kept with it and wants to come back to Star Wars, the fact that he wants to do this and he's so passionate, is just... what a guy. And this isn't a redemption for him. This is a redemption for the rest of Star Wars. Like, the rest of Star Wars should be apologizing to him and asking him for forgiveness. Be like, literally like Wayne's World. Like, we're not worthy. Like, what you've been through 24 years later, granted, he came back for Jedi Temple Challenge, but that's quite a minor thing. But like, going from being arguably one of the most hated characters in not just Star Wars, but cinema history, to then be the savior of one of the most beloved characters in Star Wars and to a wider extent cinema history, is like, there is no better way, I think, that they could have really honored him and really brought him back in the right way. It's like one of the things I got quite emotional with Star Wars Celebration last year. Obviously, I didn't go, but with Hayden Christensen, like, when you see... Obviously, because what happened with him with the prequels, and, I think Jumper's a good movie. I think he's fine in that, and there's a few other things he did. But he really took a step away from Hollywood. Like, everyone was hating on him and stuff. And so he thought he was going to be one of the biggest actors in the world. And although I don't think he's one of the best actors in the world, I don't think he's one of the worst. So I'm like, he got all this hate thrown at him, kind of got parts of his life ruined. And then to him... when you see him at Star Wars Celebration, when he comes out with Ewan McGregor, and the whole crowd just will not stop cheering, and you can see how emotional he's getting, because he just probably remembers the decades of people hating him. Yeah. That when... I'm hoping Ahmed Best is going to be a guest at Star Wars Celebration this year at London. I don't know if he is. I hope he will be. But I'm looking forward to that time where he can come out on a stage and everyone just immediately recognizes him and cheers for him like they should have done, because regardless of your opinion of Jar Jar, I'm not the biggest fan of Jar Jar, but I still love Ahmed Best for what he did. And I was, when he came on screen, I said to Megan, I was like, do you know who that is? And she was like, no, I don't. And I was like, that's Ahmed Best. That's the guy who played Jar Jar. She's like, is it? And I was like, yeah, that's him. I'm certain of it. But I don't want to look up the credits because it might be spoilers if there's anything else. But I was like, I am certain. And then when the credits came up and it said starring and his name came up, I was like, I knew it. Yeah. I knew it. So that moment for me, I got very, I don't really get emotional Star Wars that much. But when I saw him, I was like, in my heart, I was like, I am just so happy that he's got his chance to have this. And I'm hoping... what I was worried about is he was going to save Grogu and die immediately, but he hasn't.
Oh my God, right?
So I'm like, is he going to survive? Are we going to get, I would love a comic series of Kelleran Beq, or a book or something. That would be like I would love that. I want him to survive. I don't think he's going to survive the whole time.
No.
I think there's going to be probably another episode coming where we see him die and save Grogu, but I'm like, he was so badass. He was so cool with his dual lightsabers, and he took on all these clone troopers and was saving people left, right, and center. I was just like, I'm in 1,000%. But what did you think of our boy?
When it opens, like it starts like zooming into Grogu's face, I'm like, oh, we're gonna get like a flashback. All right, cool. We're getting the flashback. Nice. And it pops open, and we're going up, and that elevator dings, and it opens. I'm like, who is it? And it just opens. And at first I'm like, is that? I was like, I don't know who that is. Oh my God, I do know who that is. Oh my God, that's Ahmed Best. And then he speaks. He's like, you're going to be all right, kid. I was like, oh, is this the character from the Temple Challenge? Which I didn't watch, by the way.
I haven't seen it
because I'm not a child, or am I? I don't know. And I'm just like, oh my God, and just shock. I couldn't feel, I couldn't think, I couldn't hear. And as I'm watching it, then he grabs the lightsaber and he ignites it, and he just starts going off, and I'm like, oh my God, this is so badass. And I'm just sitting there with my hands on my head going, oh my God, it's happening. It's happening. And he slays them. He goes through. Then we get to the platform. First off, what a great chase, right? I'm talking about like a great Star Wars chase on Coruscant. Like, come on. Beautiful. But he gets to the ship, the platform, and it's a Nubian ship. Someone said it's the ship from episode 2. I thought it was the ship from episode 1. I haven't looked it up, which I guess is my fault, if I'm being honest.
I haven't looked it up either, to be fair.
Yeah. But I remember that ship being from episode 1, and the same ship that Jar Jar is on. So I'm like, oh my God, Ahmed Best is on like the same ship platform right now that he started on. Like poetry. It's like poetry and rhymes. On my second watch, as soon as those he's going up the elevator, and it dings, and I started tearing up, and then it opens, and I'm starting to tear up even more, and then he just starts slaying people and looking like an absolute badass. And the sabered hand, indeed, that's his nickname.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm bawling. I'm just bawling my eyes out because I'm like, this fills my heart with so much joy, because he didn't want to live because of Star Wars fans.
Mm-hmm.
And then he went to Star Wars Celebration and got the ovation he fucking rightly deserves. And then he was back. Like, he was fully back then. But he came back here and there for Dave Filoni to voice Jar Jar on the Clone Wars. He did it here and there. And then he came back to be Kelleran Beq, which I think is just an evolutionary step up. And the fact that he survives has me so much more excited, because I thought he was going to die too. I'm like, well, this is where he dies. He's going to get his one off. And the guards are like, take the ship. And I'm like, whoa, unexpected. Is he going to make it? And he doesn't get shot, and they go off. And I'm like, okay. So now we know who saves Grogu, but now what they did so well is what happened next. None of us gave a shit about what happened next. We just wanted to know who. And now we want to know what happens next. And now we want to know, how does he get trained for, how long are they together? Like, there's so many more questions, which I think is beautiful. One question that is really on my mind, I got two. As soon as I saw the Nubian ship and it fly off, you know what I thought? Are you ready for this? We're going to get Keira Knightley. That's what I thought. I thought we're getting Sabe, who currently is fighting
Vader.
I believe on Tatooine. Not yet. No.
Oh, you mean at this time? You mean at the time in the story? So I thought you meant in the comics right now. What's happening? Sorry.
Yeah.
We're both crossing, because there's a lot of Sabe content people really don't understand. There's a whole trilogy of books, the Queen's trilogy by E.K. Johnston, which I assume is what you're referring to, and I'm referring to the Crimson Reign, War of the Bounty Hunters, Hidden Empire crossover stuff. So please continue with your thoughts. Sorry.
Yeah, I need Marvel Unlimited to release those faster, because I'm behind. I caught up to like all the Vader stuff, and I was like, oh, sad. But at this point in the flashback, she is on, I don't know if it's Tatooine anymore, but she's on a desert planet trying to save slaves with
I think it is Tatooine.
Yeah, I think so too. And so that's kind of building over here. She goes to Naboo, finds out she died, finds out something else, if I'm not mistaken. And so like a lot happens. And then the Amidalans are going, and these guys look like the Amidalans. I heard on the Return of the podcast, shout out that podcast. Absolutely love it. It's a riot. They mentioned that those are actually Senate guards. It says in the credits, Senate guards. Who's a Naboo senator at this point in time? So either A, Amidala saw what was going on and set it up, or B, Jar Jar Binks set this up. So Ahmed Best set up Ahmed Best to save Grogu. Now that's fucking meta. And I hope that's what it is. I hope that in the end, like, there was somebody who was like, Jar Jar Binks is going to save Grogu. And I went, I love that, actually. Let's roll with that, because that's funny, and it's probably going to happen. In a way, it happened. Like, Jar Jar Binks, the actor who played him, saved him. But it could very well be that Jar Jar Binks supplied the getaway ship for Kelleran Beq and Grogs to get out of here. And all I really want right now, which isn't asking a lot, is give me every single handmaiden that ever showed up, put them back in live action. Give me Sabe, give me oh my god, am I really gonna blank on all their names? Yeah, I'm just gonna say, give me Sasha. She's my favorite. I love her. I would kill for her. I would die for her. Show me the scars. Give me a story about the battle of Naboo. Like, give me that POW story. I forgot we were talking about the Mandalorian for a second. I was about to dive so deep into the Padme books. I'm a Stan maiden. I'm keeping that. I'm keeping that in my head.
That's a fucking good one, a Stan maiden. Very nice, very nice. I will confess, I didn't read the Queen's trilogy. I like E.K. Johnston. She wrote Ahsoka, which is behind me. Yeah. It's a cracking book, and she's a great author. Like, nothing against her, but I was just like, there's so many Star Wars books, especially even trying to read the canon ones. There's so many that come out. You're like, I have to pick and choose, and I'm like, High Republic. I'm a High Republic stan. I have every single piece of High Republic printed media that exists. In fact, behind me, there's all the books there, apart from 2 which are downstairs. I'm currently, well, one Megan's reading, the other one I'm reading. I've got every comic. I've got the Starlight stories. I've got the art books. High Republic is me. I'm just like, I'm doing all of that, and then second to that is other canon content, obviously Battle Scars because of Survivor coming out. But the Queen's trilogy, I didn't read that because I was like, I like Padme, she's cool, but I was like, it's not a priority for me. But then I've heard so many people say, if you're a prequel fan especially, it's amazing. There's some great Maul stuff in one of the books as well. And now that the Amidalans are like in, Hidden Empire, and it's like, yeah, they survived to where the Empire is, like Sabe, Dorme, Sache, like, I can't list them all either because there's so bloody many. Yeah. But like all these handmaidens that have just like learnt from Padme and taught Padme in a lot of ways, and it's like how important these figures are to Star Wars. So I think I am definitely going to like delve into that trilogy. I really want to. But yeah, I mean, I think it would be the ultimate, like, I don't know how fans would feel if, say, the next episode we get another flashback and Grogu goes somewhere in the ship. And I looked up the ship as well while you were speaking, and it is an H-type Nubian yacht, and it was first shown in Attack of the Clones. But it's also in Queen's Hope as well, and it's in a couple. It's mentioned in like the Thrawn Alliance's flashback as well. So I think the strong indication is that it is
Padme's.
Yeah, I think that is, because it says here, like, one was flown from Naboo to Tatooine to help Anakin Skywalker find his mother, then to Geonosis to rescue Obi-Wan. Others were used during the Battle of Khalid Nebula and her mission to Rhodia, though in both cases the yachts were destroyed owing to unfortunate circumstances. So, I don't know. Padme probably
had not Padme's.
It may, I mean, she probably had more than one ship.
Well,
but
we see her with this ship. So it's not Padme's. In Revenge of the Sith, at this exact same time, she has one of those, if I'm not mistaken, it's the Stingray, right?
Oh, yeah, the one that lands on Mustafar. Yeah, I'm trying to remember which one that is, but I'm currently having a blank. I wish I knew I wish I had a Star Wars encyclopedia brain, and a lot of my friends and podcast listeners think I know everything about Star Wars, and it's like, when you're a Star Wars fan, like we are, and you start reading the books, you realize how utterly impossible it would be to know everything. Even knowing everything about the canon is near on impossible, let alone knowing everything including legends. That's like a whole kettle of fish. That's like, hundreds of thousands of years of history in a non-existent galaxy. But if they did it where the next flashback is him going, Keira Knightley's there, and Jar Jar's just there, even if he just has one line of dialogue, and just Ahmed Best nods to Jar Jar, I would be so happy. I would be so enamored, because people would be like, simultaneously be like, fuck Jar Jar and Ahmed Best. But yeah, Jar Jar, but like, yeah, Ahmed Best and Kelleran Beq, and you'd be like, there's such a weird dissonance of like, I don't know how to feel.
What feel now?
So I love that idea. I didn't realise, and I'm kind of mad at you for saying that idea, because I love it so much, and I feel like it's probably not going to happen, but yeah, I would love that. And if anyone...
I would be so surprised if we ever see Jar Jar in live action again.
I agree.
Personally.
Yeah, I mean, the only thing we got is obviously we saw him in Clone Wars, a couple of arcs, and generally speaking, they are the weakest arcs of the Clone Wars. He's pretty annoying in that. But then there is, in the Aftermath trilogy of books, there's the one interlude chapter, which takes place after the Battle of Endor, and it's just got Jar Jar's like a street, not quite an urchin, but he's like a clown, he's nicknamed.
Yeah.
And people just like, he entertains kids and kind of gets a bit of money almost busking, I guess. But everyone generally hates him because they all blame him for the rise of Palpatine because he's the one, obviously, who voted to give Palps emergency power. And I'm like, yeah, I get where you're coming from. But equally, I'm like, someone else would have done it. And it's not really Jar Jar's fault. You know, Palpatine literally, you know, he manipulated the whole Jedi and committed like mass genocide and took over the entire galactic government. And you're blaming Jar Jar for giving him emergency powers like 5 years before that happened. 4 years, 3 years before it happened. It's like, meh. But I know that JJ said that when he made Force Awakens, he really wanted to do like the skull of like a Gungan somewhere. And I was like, that would have kind of been like a point and laugh kind of joke. But I feel like you can actually, Jar Jar's the kind of character where he's really annoying, but I think in books and stuff, you could probably flesh him out a bit. And I feel like, much like with the prequels, it's been enough time now that if you brought Jar Jar back, I don't think they're ever going to in live action, as you said. But if they did, and they just a little bit, like a cameo with like a line or two, I think people would love it. I think if he's the main character of a series or something, it would be a nightmare.
What if he shows up one day randomly and goes, it's a Grogu. You survived. It's so good to see you. But like, that's too high. He'd be like, you survived. It's so good to see you. Yeah. He's so tired.
Yeah, he's got like, he's grown grey. Because I think Gungans don't actually live that long either. I think Gungans only have like half the lifespan of like a human. So I think they only live to like 30 or 50 years generally.
Oh, tits.
I may be wrong there, but I'm pretty certain I read that when I was looking up Gungan stuff for one of the podcasts. But yeah, I would love that. But is there anything, I also want to say I loved Grogu looking at the Forge and it being like this whole meditative like trance experience for him. I really like that element of like, it's not quite this, but almost like a combination between like flow state and meditation. And I really, really like that. And in the High Republic, there's a character called Venestra Rowe, and she has hyperspace visions. Yeah. And like, I know that concept is in the Thrawn, I think it's the Ascendancy trilogy, where you've got people who are Skywalkers, and it's generally teenage girls who have like, they can navigate using the Force through hyperspace, but it's only like generally for a short period of time for these individuals.
7 to 13.
Yeah. So it's like, with that idea, I think hyperspace is so cool. And when we saw the Purrgil, a couple episodes ago, I loved that. But I love the idea of seeing hyperspace and having like Force-related visions with it. I think that's such a cool concept.
There is someone... I'm currently on, I think, the first book in Ascendancy on my re-listen. My goal is to listen to all of them before Ahsoka comes out, so I'm like throned up, baby. But I haven't gotten through it all. It's a sludge when you already know everything that happens, and the Ascendancy trilogy is super long. The Thrawn trilogy is like half that time. But once I get to the Empire stuff, pretty certain there's a character that you meet as a child in the Ascendancy, or I guess technically they flash back to her as a young, but she still has her Skywalker abilities at like 19 or 20.
But it's quite rare, isn't it?
It's very rare. And that's why they like someone is super protective of her the way they are. And I am like, oh, okay. And I'm going to say it here and now. I still think we need a Jedi to go train the Chiss Ascendancy on how to utilize the Force so Skywalkers can continue to skywalk longer. And maybe use the Force and fight. I want to be a blue person.
Well, I'd love a Chiss Jedi. That would be it. I mean, we've already got.
I want to be that guy.
Well, you can do it. I mean, we've got like Pantoran Jedi, which there's like few and far between.
Boo, they're golden. They got normalized. I want them blood reds.
It's just one of those things as well. Like, we need more Wookiee Jedi as well. Like High Republic, they're doing. There's two. Good old Buriaga. Megan calls him Biryani.
Who's the other?
Kharkov. So Kharkov is in the Edge of Balance manga. So there's 2 at the moment volumes of High Republic manga, Edge of Balance, and I think it's Karkov, his name is. But he's like a super old Wookiee, he's like white fur. And he's going to be in the next... Because in Phase 1, there was 2 Edge of Balance manga, and then in Phase 2, there's only going to be one of them, because Phase 2 is quite a bit shorter than Phase 1. So yeah, I think Karkov is going to be in the other Edge of Balance manga. But he's really cool. Buriyaga's, Bay, but Karkov is really, really cool. But I want, we've got it in animation, because we've got Gunji, but it's I want a fully fledged... I think once the High Republic publications are being done, I think we're then going to get... I wouldn't be surprised if the Acolyte has some sort of side thing, but I really want live action Wookiee Jedi.
Yeah,
I would love it. That Bad Batch episode with Wookiees in was just beautiful, and I love their perception of the Force. And in fact, in the where is it, in this book, the High Republic, the Chronicles of the Jedi, an illustrated guide, which has got a lot of Phase 1 and Phase 2 stuff in there. In fact, I'll bring it out. There's a part which shows how certain Jedi characters perceive the Force, which is one of my favorite things about the whole of the High Republic. I love that stuff.
Same. And I love the way they discuss it with each other.
And so here's a picture of how Buryaga perceives the Force, and he perceives it as a tree. So, which I just think is really, really cool and beautiful. And then you've also got, I think, Stellan Gios as well, or Elzar. It's Elzar Man, that is actually.
That's Elzar Man. Yeah. He's the one who sees it as a single drop in the ocean.
Yeah, he's my favorite High Republic character, Elzar Man. I've got a lot because I love the High Republic. As you can tell, because I'm obsessed with it. But
I have that as a whole I've got that's a saga to me. Mm-hmm. So my favorite Thrawn series, favorite Thrawn series, look at me tipping my hand. My favorite book series is Thrawn and Padme, and then I'm just but also the High Republic is probably better than both of them, but that's a saga. That's fuck the Skywalker saga. I want that High Republic saga, baby. Give me Drengar in live action.
Oh man, that would be so cool. You get some really good Star Wars horror, and that's what I think we're missing from Star Wars at the moment. Kevin Scott has tackled some horror. Excuse me, some horror. I know in Legends they had Shadow Troopers and Red Harvest. I know in Bad Batch there was the episode with a certain beast that returns, I'll say, just in case people aren't quite caught up with spoilers. That's quite a horror-y episode, but then there's also the Geonosis mind, the parasite one, where the Geonosian worms turning people into literal zombies. This is a kid's show, and there's full-on zombies, and they are freaky. People's eyes roll back and everything, and it's Star Wars has such a capacity for horror, and I'm just you could do it so well. You can make it a PG-13 or a 12A or whatever. You can do that. You don't need horror to have blood and guts and gore. Look at Woman in Black. In my opinion, one of the best horror films ever made. And it's you don't need gore for things to be scary. A lot of the time, gore actually weakens stuff. So I'm just they could really use the Drengir to just do one of those Marvel special presentations like they did with Werewolf by Night. That was amazing. Do that. Yeah. Do just a Vader special. Do 3 Vader specials and make one of them a horror thing, and make just Vader with a squadron of troopers, not dissimilar to Death Troopers, and then go somewhere, and then this creature hunts them down and kill systematically kills them. But you are from the perspective of one stormtrooper, and then you get to see what stormtroopers view Vader like. Vader wouldn't even need to be in it for a while. Vader could be the person who comes and saves them at the end or something. It would be such a cool idea. And you just do it as a special one-off hour thing, and it's just called Vader Chronicles or something, or Vader Visions, like the comics. And all you do, instead of having a Vader movie, you just have a couple of things where he just is in it a bit.
Have you read Dark Lords of the Sith?
No, I haven't. That was one of the earliest. Is that
so? Yeah,
yeah. With it's Palpatine and Vader.
Palpatine and Vader going on a mission type thing. That book was yep, I need a Vader horror series, because you get, I believe you get Cham Syndulla in that book.
Oh, really? Oh,
yeah. I've got to go back and re-listen, but I'm pretty sure.
You're right, actually, I think I've heard someone else say something like that. Yeah.
And so you get a lot of perspective of Vader from their view, and there's nothing they can do. It's sir, blah, 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 blah. Nothing's choking him. We can't see anything. There's nothing going on. And then we hear it. And we know the devil has come. And it's what? Let's go, dude. And then in my head, I'm do I want them to live, or do I want Vader to slaughter? I don't know what I want here. And that is what a show could be, a Vader show. We all root for Vader, but I've never been more afraid of Vader than episode 3 when he starts killing people in the streets just because he can. I was like, ooh, that's what I want. I want a whole series of that shit.
Kenobi Vader, was incredible. When he's at neck snap, it's like, oh God.
Yeah, he killed a child again. He never stopped. Shit, dude. Yeah, so I think the Acolyte will, because it's dark side stuff, it'll touch on that a little bit. And there are some great set photos of some High Republic era Jedi, and oh God, it looks so good.
Mm-hmm. I can't wait for, and once again, whenever I use this term, I mean it in no derogatory sense, but I can't wait for the normies to get on the High Republic train. I'm just like, we're getting in the Jedi Survivor trailer. I've not watched the newest trailer because I'm like, I'm going to play the game regardless. I've seen snapshots and things, but I'm like, I want what I can to be a surprise. But it's like, oh, the antagonist is, or at least the first antagonist, the kind of the main one maybe, or maybe it's going to be a bait and switch sort of thing, but there's a High Republic antagonist. It's like, okay. And then we're getting the Young Jedi Adventures that's set in the High Republic, and that's animation. Yeah. And it's like, oh, that's coming out. Then we're getting the Acolyte, which is my number one most excited for show. Like,
same.
Ahsoka, like, I love Ahsoka. Ahsoka's amazing, and I can't wait for Ahsoka. It's going to be great, but Acolyte's going to be fresh. It's going to be new. It's going to be different. Dark side stuff, which we barely got in the canon. Like, we've got bits and pieces, like scrabbly bits, like Shadow of the Sith is another brilliant one, which is there. Shadow of the Sith by Adam Christopher. Amazing. That's got some really cool horror elements in it. And it's like, you've got so much untapped potential of horror. But
that's the one about Rey, right?
Yeah, Rey's parents.
Yeah, that's a good one. That's
really
good.
And Lando, and the Lando story is so emotional. There's a flashback scene with him and his daughter in a cup, like his cape closet.
His cape closet, the sex closet.
So emotional. I love it. But we're going to wrap up. We start to wrap up because we've only got limited time, and this is why we need to do another podcast when there's not loads of shows coming out, where we can just be like, let's just tangent after tangent after tangent about Star Wars, unfiltered.
We'll call it the world between worlds. On Ahsoka really quick, I'm more excited about the world between worlds and Thrawn than anything else. Except for my favorite Mandalorian of all time, Sabine. Give me all the Sabine content, baby.
Yeah, that would be incredible. And it's like with Ahsoka as well, it's like, but when Ahsoka got announced, people were like, meh, I don't think World Between Worlds is going to be in it. And then you see the logo when that was announced, it's like, the logo is the World Between Worlds. It literally is. And it's like, Filoni, you better not be red herring us. You better not be doing this and like doing a bait and switch, because I'll be mad.
Have you heard some of the rumors that are coming out about the show?
I haven't, but I try and ignore them because
that's good then.
A lot of the time they're correct.
I unfortunately they were told to me and I was like, are you fucking serious? Like, that would be amazing. So there's some visions that have been dropped that might happen. I believe they announced Hayden was going to show up.
Yes, yeah, they did.
I can't remember.
I don't think you can have an Ahsoka show for, again, the normies without because they've touched upon it in Mando and Book of Boba Fett, but like they haven't. Unless you see...
They haven't said it outright.
No, they've not literally said. And I think it would be the Ahsoka thing I'm most looking forward to, if they even do it, which I really hope they do, because the hint of Book of Boba Fett was that wasn't the first time Ahsoka and Luke met. And I've seen like an artist's rendition of this, but this was years ago when this person drew this, and I can't remember the artist, so apologies. But it's a drawing of Ahsoka post-episode 6 meeting up with Luke, and Luke saying, I saved him. He came back to the light, and then Ahsoka just collapsing to her knees and crying and saying, you did it. He's come back. And then her interacting with this Force Ghost. I'm just like, I'm not ready. I want it. It's going to hurt me, but I need it.
The best chapter in Shadow of the Sith is the Force Ghost.
Oh, yes. That was incredible. And the fact that it flicks between the different ones, and it kind of canonically explains that Force Ghosts, or the people seeing the Force Ghost is not this thing that can't change. The Force Ghost can change depending on who's seeing it, or what the Force Ghost wants you to see, or even their own connection. And I'm like, so many layers of that book that are just top tier.
That means we're gonna get Annie and Obi back together as old youngin' men as Force Ghosts. I need it.
I need more Obi-Wan Force Ghosts. I need you, McGregor. Oh, Yui. Oh man, you get me so excited about Ahsoka, but we're still going to wait so much longer. But there's still a little bit to go on Mando. I know we're going to be wrapping up, but there is the Bo-Katan stuff, which I loved, and the fact that when she asks, I found it very respectful. Like I was on that high from Kelleran Beq and emotional, and I was like, I just feel so happy and emotional. And then they had this really nice somber scene with the Mandalorians and Bo-Katan saying, how do I eat around you? And with no disrespect, and what I love about the armorer, in the first couple of seasons, she came off as a little bit standoffish and a little bit like, you seem like, coming up yourself with your own religion. But then the way that they just allow Bo-Katan in, they're like, look, you don't have to be part of the Children of the Watch, but if you've bathed in the waters and you haven't taken your helmet off, you can just join us. That's completely fine. And everyone's really super chill and nice about it. And I'm like, this is like showing what the really good religions and spiritual elements and things and sects of beliefs can be in a lot of ways.
Yes.
And I really love that. And then when she asks, and Din just very respectfully says that we go off and separately and we eat our food and then we come back. And she's like, okay. And she gets up and then Paz is like, no, you're leading this. You get the honor of sitting by the fire. And you can see it. And this is one of the things that's brilliant about Mandalorian as a show is how well directed and how well acted it is you can really read body emotion, which realistically before, really Vader's the only character that you got to see that. In Return of the Jedi, which is one of the reasons why the big no that gets added is the worst bit of the special editions that's been added in, is because when he's looking at from Luke to Palps, back and forth, and there's no emotion there, you can see with the body language and everything with Vader what he's thinking, which is why he didn't need to add the no in it. But aside from Vader, you don't really get that much body languagey stuff because obviously so much of it is animation, which is a different thing. But you can see her look and be like, I'm the newest person here. I've slated your essentially religion for a long time and blasphemed it and all this stuff. And I've just accidentally redeemed myself just by coincidence, essentially. And you're letting me in. And because I'm helping you get this kid back, you don't have to let me eat by the fire. You could just say, you just go eat over there. But they're sticking to their honor and their religion and their sect and their creed. And I'm like, I just really liked it. And when she takes off her helmet and is just sitting by the fire, I was like, this is just such a nice moment. I will say with this whole episode, although I liked the Kelleran Beq Coruscant stuff, there were a couple of moments and it was like, it's a bit green screeny. It's probably the volume and stuff, and it's just one of those things. You can't... Filming something like Coruscant is near on impossible because it's so much CGI. So it still looked really cool. I really appreciate that. But with the chasing down the dragon parts, I found the dragon action bits, to me, I just found them not as interesting. I was just like, meh, I'm not... This is a plot device more than something that's really dramatic and thrilled. But when they get into the big nest, I did quite like that. So what do you think about the Mandalorian fire bit and then the kind of the final parts with the dragon and all that stuff?
I loved the fire bit because that's a question I've had. So when you're around a bunch of people, how do you eat? And it's just you don't. You just go off by yourself and you eat alone. And I'm like, well, I guess I'm a Mandalorian because I eat alone all the time. But and then when she gets up, I did not expect Paz Vizsla of all people to be to mention to her, you're leading this war party. Get the honor of staying by the fire. And he just walks off. No, doesn't say anything else. Just you get it. And it wasn't with any tension. It's just pure respect. Thank you. And when she takes her helmet off for the first time, you can tell first, it's been a long time since she's taken it off. So she's enjoying it. But B, she's very conflicted. Mm-hmm. She's okay. I think what she's having is a crisis of faith, if you will.
Say the same thing.
She's straight up been the most modern Mandalorian. No, we need to do this. We need to stick to this. We're going to fight. We're going to be warriors. And then it led to the downfall of her entire people. And now she's angry and bitter and doesn't have any hope. And right now, I think we are seeing why Din Djarin is the way he is, because these people are genuinely good people. And they do what they got to do, and they follow the creed, and that's it. And they stick by each other, and they do whatever they can to protect each other. And Bo-Katan, I think, is seeing that and going, this is what Mandalore should be. This is what we should have been. We are helpful to each other. We are trying to save each other. And then the dragon stuff, I had fun. I liked it. Yeah. We get, flying into the mouth of a dragon was a choice, but it led to a great chase scene again.
I thought he did it intentionally. I was like, he's diving in the dragon to do a Zilla Beast kind of thing. And he was, no, he's just getting eaten. I was like,
yeah.
Okay.
He did it. I know what he did do it intentionally so that he would at least
Save
he's
the
in the
son.
mouth and the son will be free. Unfortunately for him, the kid got picked up, as
Anyway,
well. So it's
literally
like
how he got there is like,
Yeah. So it is but hey, he's not in the mouth at least. And he didn't have armor on. He just had a helmet. So like kid's not going to survive very long. But I love that we have that chase scene. It's fun. It's a fun ass chase scene. I love Mando jetpack action, baby. So like, give me more of that content. Like,
and I like the fact it ran out before they got to the thing as well, because that was
Earlier?
It's like we don't have infinite fuel. It's like that's right. In all the games you play and everything, it's always like there's a limit.
There's a limit, and I love that too. I couldn't remember if we'd seen it before, but I'm starting to think in Rebels they mention it at one point. So the way they take down the beast is amazing. The teamwork involved. So Bo-Katan saves Paz Vizsla, Din Djarin saves the kid, and then Din Djarin also takes down the dragon, which then gets Jurassic Worlded by that breaching monster from episode 1. Is always breaching the water. And also there's always a bigger fish. So
I did think that.
Yeah, I was like, oh, it's Jurassic World. And then I'm like, oh, there's always a bigger fish. And I really enjoyed how that kind of like linked together. And then they got more foundlings, those 3 dragon babies. That's fun. I'm really intrigued about that. Grogu's gonna have a great time with those kids, let me tell you. But I really think while I'm thinking about it, the best singular shot in this whole episode was the dragon flying into the sun and Bo-Katan's ship chasing after it.
That was beautiful.
That was amazing. I want that on my wall as a piece of art. I'm putting this out in the world. All of my artist friends, hit me with your best shot. She loses a pauldron, and then it's like, Bo-Katan, exactly. That's exactly what I thought of.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, I'm waiting for the Death Star to pop up and blow some shit out of the sky. But they say, you have done the highest honor of the creed, saving a foundling. So we didn't even mention Grogu gets a piece of armor. He gets a piece of armor because he won a challenge, proved his strength, proved his worth. You get an upgrade. Bo-Katan gets an upgrade because she saved a foundling. She wants the mythosaur, right? Now those rumors of Bo-Katan being an antagonist are starting to make sense. Then she tells the armorer about, and I'm going to come back to his thing you said in a second. The armorer, she tells the armorer about the mythosaur. Oh, it's great to have a vision of the mythosaur. It means you're strong and proud and blah, blah, blah. No, it was real. When you walked the way of the Mandalore, something, 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 but it was real. This is the way. End of episode. You said that the armorer is like this right up religious. I think the armorer is full of shit. I think the armorer is a liar in the fact that Mandalore is poisoned. It is this. It is that. No one should ever go there. How does she have all that living water on her at all times? She always has living waters of Mandalore on her. Always in a vial. Every time we see her and she uses that for it, she puts a whole vial basically in there. Not a drop, a whole vial. So I'm like, okay, how are you getting this living water? You've obviously been to Mandalore. Have you seen the mythosaur? And you're just like, okay, Bo-Katan's seen it too, sure. Or has she seen a vision of the mythosaur? And that's why she's like, oh yeah, a vision of the mythosaur. I don't know. I don't trust her. I don't really ever trust a cult leader. So there's that. But I love how it ends and it focuses on Bo-Katan again. And I don't know if she knows of the prophecy of the mythosaur. A mythosaur will rise again. A new age of Mandalore will rise with it. But I have a feeling. All right, I know from the trailer, their first trailer, we're going back to Navarro at some point, and we're going to take down those pirates because there's a shot in the trailer of a bunch of Mandos. They do a drop, and I thought it was a drop back to Din Djarin's pass, but I keep seeing the same troopers now with the Death Watch on their left or right shoulder pauldron. And I think that's actually them dropping on Navarro to fight the pirates. And they shoot a pirate and the pirate falls and it falls next to the Anzulans. I think that's their name.
Oh, the little the babu frick.
Hey,
yeah.
Bad baby. No
I love
squeeze.
those guys. I have got it written down. I think you are right with the
name.
Anzellans. Yeah, Anzellans. Yeah.
Anzellans. Okay. So they're in the trailer, and I'm like, oh, okay. So that pirate thing's coming back. We are going to go to Navarro, and the whole covert's going to save Navarro again. Shout out. Maybe that's where they settle, actually, sir. Maybe they get off the danger planet and they get to all be marshals of Navarro. Son of a bitch. We're writing this show, right?
I mean, to be fair, Grief Karga said it in episode 1, didn't he? He was like, Mando, you can just settle over there. I've got a place for you. And it's like, Mandalorians don't need loads of, they've been basically living in a cave. So if they just had one really nice apartment, they could share.
Yeah, one nice plot of land, then they'll just build a house or get androids to build a house. I don't know. Anyways,
lazy Luke.
Lazy Luke. Just use the Force, nerd. I think eventually, next episode we're gonna do a mission, and Din Djarin is gonna look weak, and that is when Bo-Katan is gonna do something awesome, and at the end she's going to challenge for the Darksaber. We have seen she is a better fighter, not just with the Darksaber, but she took down those creatures in episode 2 much faster than Din did.
Mm-hmm.
Like Din Djarin was struggling, man. So
he got hit down. He even lost it at one point. He got he got disarmed, and it was like for him, it's really the heaviness that we learned from Book of Boba Fett. It's the weight of it. Whereas for her, it's like easy.
And I think it's because he's denying something within himself personally. Because we remember that from Kanan and Rebels. You gotta, if you're holding on to something or not revealing something, it's going to cause issue. And so Din is doing that. Whatever that is, I don't know. Maybe he'll overcome that and he'll lead the Darksaber. Blah 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 blah. But I think Bo-Katan challenges at the end of next episode for that saber. And that'll be episode 5. Episode 6, I think we get that fight. We get that challenge. And I have it in my mind. One episode this season is titled The Challenge. Because we heard it. It's like, I challenge you for this. And it's like, okay. And that's normally how you do it. So I think that's what that's building to. That's the antagonist, quote unquote, for Bo-Katan is she's going to challenge for the Darksaber. That's it. And whether that's she might give Mando the lessons he needs on how to wield the Darksaber so she can win it outright. Or she might say, put the saber down so we can go one-on-one because you are clearly not going to win with it type thing. And just go mano a mano. I'd be happy for that. But we're gonna get Moff Gideon again.
I was gonna say, I bet maybe that episode we get a flashback showing how she loses it, while in the current thing showing how she gets it back. Wouldn't that be clever? Wouldn't that be good?
So in season 1, after episode, it's like the first 3 episodes do this thing, and I think it's episode 3 that we get the Mando covert, and they come out and they fight the Empire, right? Because he gives the Grogu back. That's that episode?
I think so.
Episode 4 starts the planet hopping. That is basically 2 seasons of content. In episode 2 of this year, they end the Mandalore sequence. The last 2 episodes we've had bookends with something else in the middle. I'm wondering if that's going to become a theme, where there's something else happening in the middle of these episodes. Whether it's flashbacks, whether it's something else, whether it's just cutting away to this whole other character that we need to know about right now. I'm wondering. I'm not saying it will. That is something I'm pondering.
It's a good point. They do that a lot in the comics, especially when you get an anthology series like Cavan Scott. It's like the term is framing story. Yeah. So you've got like a framing story that it's almost like if you have 5, normally this is what they do in the comics. You get like half of the first issue is the setup and then some small side story. And then issues 2, 3, 4, there's a little bit of framing story, like 1 or 2 pages at the start of the end, but the middle is the bulk. And then normally the final comic, number 5, that's the finale of the framing story of no flashback things. So very good point. Very good. I think you're right there. And yeah, I agree with basically everything you've been saying. I think it's really cool. Some really great stuff on the horizon. My only qualm with this episode is one thing I didn't think made any sense was the raptor dragon thing took the kid and then they camped out overnight and then they get to the nest in the morning, and it seems like the raptor's only just landing with the kid. But it's like, but the raptor was ahead of you and beat you to where it was going. In theory, it didn't rest, because why would it not rest in its own nest? So where did it put the kid? Why didn't it just feed the babies? Earlier. Maybe the babies were asleep at night, maybe, and it was too late to feed the kids. Maybe they should have said maybe one little line of dialogue like, oh, we should camp here, and then Din goes, or Bo-Katan goes, are we going to have time? And they go, oh, don't worry, the raptors only feed in daylight or something. You know, something, just one throwaway line would have fixed that.
Here's my issue with that, because I was questioning that too, but I was like, you know what? I'm just going to let it go because it's Star Wars. And
I'm the same like that. I question things, but I don't let it ruin stuff usually.
The sun is setting, but she goes all the way there, comes all the way back, says where the nest is, because I followed it to the nest. Then they leave again the same day, and then they camp at night. Mm-hmm. So she made it back to the nest with the dragon. So I'm with the same way. I'm like, why? I'm just like, maybe that was just breakfast, right? Like early bird gets the worm kind of thing. Like, I'm going to go get this kid now while they're out because I can hear them. That's why you don't shoot at the water. So like, that's where my head is at, was like, maybe it was just getting breakfast for the morning and they ate something else that night. And it was like, oh, look, these idiots are outside again. God, just go to Navarro.
There's no giant dino turtles in Navarro. Yeah, there's just a couple of really brilliantly prosthetic pirates, and then that really cool weird pirate king who looks a bit like a Vogon from the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy movie, which I love.
I was thinking Swamp Thing, but I like that too.
A combination of Vogon Swamp Thing. But we'll stop it here, because otherwise we'll go on another 100 tangents, and you are one of my favorite people to talk Star Wars with. So thank you so much, good sir, in between your many podcasts, for making time to come on mine and chat with me about Mando. I'm so glad, like, with these episodes, I said to you sort of off air, I was like, sometimes I try and get a few people, sometimes not. I'd put my feelers out, reached out, and I had a couple people who may or may not have been able to make it. But I'm so glad it was just the two of us, because we could, like, with other people I speak to, I try and get a wide variety of Star Wars fans on here, because, you and I are both in the same boat. There's no Star Wars gatekeeping. If you've seen just the original trilogy, or you've consumed all of it, you're a Star Wars fan. If you enjoy Star Wars in any way, you're a Star Wars fan. Yeah. But, like, it is quite refreshing, because a lot of even my friends who I podcast with and things, they haven't consumed as much content. And although that's fine, because I do a stupid amount, it's quite nice when you and I can just be like, oh yeah, this book and this book and this book. And a lot of people listening are like, what are you talking about? It's like, I don't care. Look it up, nerds. But it's delightful having you on, as always. Once all the Mandalorian stuff is all over, we'll do a double collab. I'll come on Reckless, and then you can come on Genuine Chit-Chat with or without your co-hosts, and then just have loads and loads more Star Wars conversations, because there's so much Star Wars to talk about. But speaking of Reckless, and it's Reckless, is it Reckless Rebels or Reckless Rebellion?
It is Reckless Rebellion, but Reckless Rebels is our Twitter account.
That's what I thought.
Because you can't fit Rebellion after Reckless. You only have 15 characters or something. Thanks, Elon Musk.
But plug away. Tell us where people can find you and stuff.
You can find Reckless Rebellion. It's the podcast with enough chaotic energy to fuel a Death Star. And boy, do we stay reckless on there. Apple Podcast, Spotify is where you can find the podcast itself. And on Twitter, which is our only social media, because why not? Why have more when we barely keep up with the ones that we have?
And it's a ball ache, so...
Yeah, it's tough, man. It's tough. So we are on Twitter at Reckless Rebels, RECKLESSREBELS, because spelling is hard. And then you can find me personally on Twitter and Instagram at TC Rochester Act, TCROCHESTERACT. I'm going to MegaCon Orlando in a couple days. So if you follow me on Instagram, you're going to see some fun stuff on my stories. And I'm friends with the 501st. So I'm always trying to get them Star Wars picks, baby.
Oh, nice. And also I saw an announcement for MegaCon. I think the cast of like the OG Scream are going to be there.
Hey, you know who's there? You want to know who is there? Ahsoka and Anakin live action.
Oh,
Hayden Christensen and Rosario Dawson are there.
Oh, man.
And I love Rosario. I cannot afford a picture with both. I don't think I could afford an autograph from both. I might not be able to afford any of those, but I'm trying to meet Hayden Christensen.
Very nice.
Like, that is, growing up, that's my Star Wars lead.
Mm-hmm.
And it's so weird that I'm also like towing the line of balance at any point in time. You never know which way I'm going to go. I'm emotional. I shouldn't be. I struggle with letting go of attachments. It's crazy. I mean, I had my car for like 15 years and I didn't want to let it go. I just kept fixing it the best I could. So, we're not that different, except I don't kill children. So there's that. All right. That's where it ends. That's his villain story. And I'm just like, no, too far. Too far.
I think we could have a whole podcast on whether or not if we got force powers. Like, because when I was young, I used to think I was an Obi-Wan, and Obi-Wan is like the epitome in a lot of ways of Jedi. Now I think it's probably Kanan, but the more I've been thinking about it, I'm like, if I got force powers, I think I would end up being like Anakin, because I'd just be like, I'd do it for the right reasons. There'd be someone who'd be really rude to my partner Megan, and then I'd be like, hey dude, back the fuck up, and then he'd get a bit in my face, and I'd use the force to choke him, and that would just keep getting worse. So yeah, I think there's a whole podcast there. There is. That can be the jumping off point of whenever we next chat. But thank you so much, good sir. I'll put the links in the description. It's a delight chatting with you as always.
Yes. But thank you for having me on. I love it. And I'm the same way. I have a Star Wars podcast with 3 other dudes who also enjoy Star Wars of different mediums and content. And they call me the Holocron Keeper because I listen to books all the time.
Same.
And when I run out of books to listen to, I re-listen to books because I'm like, this was a good one. Let's go listen to Star Wars. I need an escape from my reality of this workday. Let's listen to 8 hours of Star Wars.
Same.
Oh, I'm painting? Star Wars.
I'm the same. I do chores. Or like Megan's like, oh yeah, there's some washing up to do. It's like, yes, an hour. Let's do it. How did it take you an hour to wash up? Because I was taking my time listening to the latest High Republic audio drama. Thank you very much. I can't focus on washing up when I'm listening to things explode, can I?
Yeah, exactly. So I appreciate it, man. And I can't wait to have you on Reckless. And then we're just going to go to the world between worlds and talk about wherever our minds go. It's going to be a fun time.
It's going to be the best. Well, thank you so much. And guys, you can find me on social media at Genuine Chit-Chat, Instagram, Twitter, and on Facebook. All the other details of the recent guest spots I've done and shows and etc. like that, all in the show notes. And you can obviously watch all the video versions for this, probably should have said at the start, at Genuine Chit-Chat's YouTube channel, youtube.com/Genuine Chit-Chat. But thank you, friends, for listening as always. Thank you, Thomas. You're an absolute delightful human being to talk to and to look at. And as always, friends, thank you for listening. And may the Force be with you.